Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This weekly portion is called Korach, or Korah. It also means bald. It's going to be Numbers chapter 16, verse 1 through 18, verse 32. The Havdallah portion is 1 Samuel chapter 11, verse 14 through chapter 22, verse 12, verse 22. And the apostolic portion is going to be Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 7. The introduction. This parashah speaks of 4 different rebellions. Korah against Aaron, Dathan and Abiram against Moses, the tribal chiefs against Aaron, and finally, the entire congregation against Moses. Korah was the instigator of it all, and almost 15,000 people died because of it. What is amazing is it didn't take long for the entire congregation to rise against Moses. Numbers chapter 16, verses 41 through 45. But on the next day, all the congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and against Aaron, saying, "You have killed the people of the Lord." And when the congregation had assembled against Moses and against Aaron, they turned towards the tent of meeting. And behold, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. And Moses and Aaron came to the front of the tent of meeting. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Get away from the midst of this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." And they fell on their faces. Now let's understand this, where this verse is coming from. Okay? The day before this verse, okay, Korah and the 250 leaders of Israel were killed by God. Okay? If you remember the portion, the ground opens up around Korah's tent, and Korah and his family die. They get swallowed up by the water, or by the ground. And then fire comes out from the Lord and consumes the 250 people that had come to the tent of meeting with their incense holders. And it killed them. Okay? So the day before, God made this huge spectacle. Okay? There is no way Moses could have done that. Okay? How could Moses have opened up the ground? Okay? How could Moses have fire come out from God and consume 250 people at one moment? Okay? It couldn't happen. But the very next day, the whole congregation, the entire congregation, over 2 million people come in front of Moses and say, "You killed the people of the Lord. You did." Isn't that amazing? How in one day, this whole thing could come across like that. And 2 million people go against Moses. Man, I feel sorry for Moses when I read this portion, because what did Moses do? He didn't fight back. He didn't say, "You guys are wrong, and you guys don't know what you're talking about." He fell on his face. He fell on his face, and he prayed. And he's like, "Lord, no, don't kill this people. Don't destroy them. Don't consume them." And that was Moses' response to this people that were going against him now, when he didn't do anything wrong. And so here they are, going against him. But we got to look at this even a little bit further. Okay? Let's back up a little bit. Okay? I spoke about 4 different rebellions in the same reading, right? The first one, okay, is when Korah goes against Aaron. Now, who's Korah? Okay, who's Korah? All right. He's one of the leaders of the tribe. He's a Levite. Okay, he's a cousin of Moses. He's a Levite. Okay? He was one that took up his sword and killed his brethren for the golden calf. Okay, he's one of those people that did that. And God blessed him for it, saying, "You're going to have a covenant. You're replacing the firstborn. Levite is now my chosen people. My replacing the firstborn." So Korah was an important, quote, person. He wasn't just somebody. He was a Levite. One that had raised up to God's call, saying, or Moses' call, saying, who's going to, come to the defense of the Lord when it came to the golden calf? He was one of them. So he figured he probably had a right. He probably, I'm one of these people. Man, I stood up. Did Aaron stand up? Aaron didn't stand up. I did. Right? This is probably what Korah was thinking. Okay? And so that's why he probably went against Aaron. But we have to understand that the situation of who Korah was and where he came from. And that's tough. Okay? And so Korah probably thought that Moses was playing favoritism. Okay? I mean, think about it. Moses is the leader of Israel, and his brother gets to be the high priest. Right? All right. If we work in if we work in any business, and you're the owner or the leader of your business or whatever promotes their son or their brother over you, and you've been there longer and all this kind of stuff, and you've done more, what's the first thing we think of? Well, yeah, nepotism. We think, yeah, favoritism. You're doing it because they related. Come on. The city, they have rules against that. You can't have anything like that, right? The county government, same thing. Okay, because it is an issue. So Korah probably thought the same thing. Oh yeah, this is Moses just helping his brother out. He didn't do anything. Should have been me. Right? And so that's probably why he went against Aaron. And then the second one you have to look at is Dathan and Abiram. Okay? Who are they? Okay? Well, they're from the tribe of Reuben. Okay? What matters? That doesn't matter. Well, it does matter because Reuben was the firstborn son. Okay? And so, isn't the firstborn son supposed to be the leader of the family? Isn't he supposed to be in charge? Isn't he supposed to be the redeemer of the family? He's supposed to be in that position. So maybe they thought that, hey, it's the firstborn that should be in charge. Maybe we should be the ones going, hey, we're leading this group, not Moses, not Aaron. Come on, it's supposed to be us. We're the firstborn. Who's this Moses guy? Right? I mean, but as we see, we're seeing a pattern develop here. The third rebellion we see is the 250 leaders then, the tribal leaders that were there, then went against Aaron. Okay? So there you have 2 attacks against Aaron, right? And 1 against Moses. But these then are leaders. They're the, quote, important people. They've been the ones that were raised up in their clans, the ones that are in charge of any, name them, Dan or Gad or Naphtali. These were the leaders of those groups that were chosen. And they went against Moses. Okay? So we're seeing a pattern here. And what's the pattern? The pattern is who's in charge, who's in control, who's the boss. Okay? Who's the boss? Who's the rightful position? And that's the rebellions that you see take place. Okay? And so as we see this pattern taking place, finally, then the entire congregation, okay, of Israel goes against Moses. Okay? And so we see this pattern taking place. But why did this all happen in the first place? It happened because of one man. One man, Korah. And his name means bald. Okay, and what does that have to do with it? Are we talking no hair? Okay, well, it could be. He might have had no hair. Okay, but what it means is his covering. Okay, Korah removed his covering. And so then he was bald. Okay, the Jewish people wear kippahs, and it symbolizes God's hand upon them. Okay, if you take it off, you're uncovered. You're bald in their eyes, and you're no longer under the covering of God. Okay? And so Korah lost his covering, and why did he lose it? Rebellion. Because he wanted to be in charge. He wanted to be the boss. And that's hard. Okay? So that's the situation we put this all in. And so then we go back to Moses. Instead of Moses getting mad, instead of him fighting these people, he falls on his face and he prays. Man, can you imagine the situation he found himself in? Okay? How everybody was mad. Yet he says, Numbers chapter 12, verses 3, Now the man of Moses was very meek, more than all the people who were on the face of the earth. Well, that word meek can also be translated as humble. Okay? And that's where we get that humble, Moses was the most humble man. Okay, which is from that verse. Well, I would think so if he has 2 million people coming against him. And what does he do? He bows down in front of the Lord? That is pretty humble. Okay? So, we have all this going on, and Moses prays. And he says, don't destroy him. Don't kill him. Let him go. Okay? Because then he says, and he makes a good point here in Numbers 16:22. It says, O El, or O God, Elohim of the spirits of all flesh, when one man sins, are you wroth or angry with all the congregation? You know, that's a pretty good question if you think about it. You know, and Moses is asking God this question. Okay? When it happens, when you have leaders that are up in front of congregations, and one person comes up and causes a problem or whatever, sometimes that leader takes it out on the whole congregation. Okay? And so that's somebody saying, are you going to be mad at everybody? Or are you just going to be mad at this one person who caused problems? That's a good question, right? And so this is how Moses starts getting in with the Lord and talking to him and say, are you going to be mad at everybody because of this? And so it opens up a dialogue between him and the Lord when it comes to this. And it opens up his intercession now for the people. Okay? And so it's a very good question to ask. So when we see that, we got to ask ourselves, you know, do we think as people in a congregation, okay, do our behaviors affect everybody else? Okay? They can. Absolutely. Okay? And that's what we don't understand. You know, what I do during the week, does it affect you guys? Yes, it does. Okay? Now, we may not see it, we may not know for a while, but it still affects everybody. Okay? And we have a problem with that. What I do when I'm not at work affects my work. Okay? Because I'm in my position. If I do something stupid out at some restaurant, when I go to talk to them about wanting our product, do you think they're going to say yes? No. Okay, so the behavior would affect my work, and I wasn't even at work. So sometimes our behavior affects other parts of our lives, and we don't even notice this. Okay? And so, but yet here's Moses saying, are you going to be angry with everybody? Okay? But I back up to Korah and saying, now, 15,000 people, as I mentioned at the beginning, died because of Korah. Died because of Korah, because of his behavior. Man, that's a lot of people. What if we were responsible for 15,000 people dying? Oh, well, Paul, it doesn't say that, right? It's not Korah's fault. It was all the people's fault. They did it, and so it was their fault. That's why they died, right? That's not what Scripture says. Numbers chapter 16 verse 49 says, and those who died in the plague were 14,700, besides those who died on account of Korah. Okay? So, the 250 plus 14,700 makes 14,950. That's pretty close to 15,000 people died on account of Korah. Man, talk about responsibility. I don't know if I'd ever want that. Okay? So here we see the behavior of one man killing a whole bunch of people, or having a whole bunch of people die because of it. Okay? Well, we see, let's back up to the golden calf incident, since it's kind of part of this, right? How many people died because of the golden calf incident? 3,000. Okay? Why? Because Aaron threw in gold and poof, out came a calf, right? Aaron didn't have anything to do with it. No, not at all. Right? No, it's because one man made this idol and they worshipped it. So 3,000 people died. Okay? Now those aren't the only two things that we see. Next week, in our next week's reading, we see the fiery serpents. Okay? Now we see the fiery serpents are starting to bite people and people are dying, so God tells Moses to put a serpent on a stake and lift it up, and everybody who looks at the serpent lives. So does the serpent kill or does it heal? Well, that's next week's portion. But why did that happen? It's because of a few men. It's a few people that cause the problem. It's not the majority. It's a few people. And the thing is, in Korah's case, they're, quote, godly men. They stood up for the Lord. They killed their brethren who were worshiping the golden calf with the sword. And God blessed them. And yet they're godly men doing this. The men of God. They're children of God. Remember that, because that's going to come in here in a little bit. Okay? So understand that our actions not only affect us or affect our family and friends, but it affects our work, it affects our synagogue, it affects every part of our lives. And so we may think we're doing it in secret and nobody knows it, but there's one that does. He knows everything, and you can't keep it from him. Okay? And so he will bring the dirt and the darkness out in the light. He does expose it. And then what do we do with it? Oh man. Do we justify it? No, that's one we like to do. Well, it's because I had to do this or I had to do that. We like justification. Another thing we do is deny. No, that's not the way it was. Come on. You got it all wrong. You misunderstood me, right? That's a lot of things. People make these quotes nowadays, and they start getting badgered for it, and they said, "No, you misunderstood what I said. That's not what I was talking about." Right? They try to blow it off. So these things, we do these things. Okay, do we ever actually stand up and say, "Yeah, that was dumb"? Very rarely do you see that. Okay? So, but we have to understand that happens. Okay? 1 Samuel chapter 12, verses 6 through 10 says, "And Samuel said to the people, 'The Lord is witness, who appointed Moses and Aaron and brought your fathers up out of the land of Egypt. Now therefore stand still, that I may plead with you before the Lord concerning all the righteous deeds of the Lord that he performed for you and for your fathers. When Jacob went into Egypt, and the Egyptians oppressed him, then your fathers cried out to the Lord, and the Lord sent Moses and Aaron, who brought your fathers out of Egypt and made them dwell in this place. But they forgot the Lord their God, and he sold them into the hand of Sisera, commander of the army of Hazor, and into the hand of the Philippines, and into the hand of the king of Moab. And they fought against them. And they cried out to the Lord and said, 'We have sinned, because we have forsaken the Lord, and have served the Baals and the Ashtoreth. But now deliver us out of the hand of our enemies, that we may serve you.'" Well, think about it. They were supposed to leave Egypt. Why? God says, "Let my people go so they can serve me." Their freedom was so that they could serve God. Now they're crying out again, "Save us from these people so that we may serve you." When we ask for freedom, what are we asking it for? So we can have freedom to do whatever we want? Or are we asking for freedom so that we can serve God? Those are two different things. Okay? Because I know, man, I'd like to be able to say, "Yeah, let me do what I want." I can be really good that way. I don't know about you guys, but, Paul can sometimes like to be in control. Barb can say yes to that. All right? But we all do. We all want to be that way. But we want the freedom to do that. But when we ask the Lord for freedom, are we asking so that we can do things our way? Or are we asking for the freedom that we can serve the Lord the way he wants us to? Now, we're all going to have different types of roles in a community. We're all going to have different gifts from God. We're going to have different things that we need to do for the Lord. We have to be free to do those things. Not everybody's a leader. Not everybody is a janitor. Okay, you have people that worship and praise, and you have prayer warriors, and you have, we'll get into what Paul says in a little bit about all the different roles. But even beyond that, there's people that cook for one another. There's people that will sit and comfort other people when they're hurting. There's different things that need to be done within a community. And it's very important. And you're all godly people. You're all children of God, and that's what's so wonderful. Okay? But here's Samuel, 400 years or so after Moses and Aaron had the problems, Samuel is still having to tell Israel that God appointed Moses and Aaron. God gave you the leadership. God did this for you. And why is he doing this? He's about to give Israel their first king. Okay, he's about to give them Saul, the first king of Israel. And so think about this. They've gone through the period of the judges now. Was Israel any better off under the period of the judges than they were under Moses? Or were they worse off? Well, I'm going to tell you they were worse off. Why? Because they all did things their way, the way they wanted to do it. There was no everyone served God as they saw fit. There was no person leading them in how to worship the Lord, how to follow the Lord, and how to live for Him. And so no, they weren't in better condition. They were worse. Okay, so now Samuel's going to put a king over Israel. What do you think Samuel thought? Oh yeah, this is going to work out good. Israel's going to follow this king, and it's just going to be easy peasy, right? No. He didn't. He knew they were going to rebel. He knew they were going to be stubborn. And it says in Isaiah, okay, it says Isaiah chapter 30 verse 9, for they are a rebellious people, lying children, children unwilling to hear the instruction of the Lord. Okay? Well, this is Isaiah. Of course, that's many years after Samuel, right? But it's not talking about the people at Samuel's time because they weren't rebellious, right? They weren't stubborn. No. It's not talking about us today neither, is it? We're not rebellious, right? No, we're not stubborn, right? We only like it our way, Burger King. But, the thing is that's the way we are. So this is talking to us today. It's talking before Isaiah, and that's who we are. And we have to understand this about ourselves, because that is the truth. People say, oh, well, you don't know my heart. You're right, I don't. But God does. And He says it's wicked beyond all things. Who could know it? Oh my goodness, right? We're stubborn people. We're rebellious. And we don't want to hear the instructions of the Lord. And so Samuel knew it was going to fail. And so he gives warnings, and all this. But you know what? All of us sitting here, I can tell you that we're all rebels. All of us. And why do I say that? Well, here it goes. How many of your parents were walking in the Messianic belief system? Seriously. Well, my children, yes. Okay, so this doesn't count for them. Okay. But my parents weren't. Barb's parents weren't. They were walking in a different belief system. And we had to rebel from that belief system to start walking in the one we currently do. Okay? Jewish people that come out of the Jewish faith that don't believe in Messiah and they find Messiah, they're rebelling against what they've been taught, against their leaders, against their parents. And they get booted out. They're like dead to people. Coming out of the Catholic Church. Okay? Things like that. You're being rebellious because that's not the way your parents raised you. Right? I mean, we rebelled against a belief system that we were taught in order to walk the walk we currently do. And so we're all rebels. All of us. Okay? The problem is we keep the rebelliousness. We keep it. And how do we keep that? Well, I'm going to tell you again. Guess what we do? We'll listen to Rabbi on Shabbat, right? And then what do we do during the week? Oh, we're going to go check out this ministry. We're going to go check out what that one does. But that's what we do. We get our teachings from other places. And we compare notes. And we say, well, which one do I like? Which one do I want to follow? Which one tickles my ear? So that's what, when I go back to what we're talking about, we get our teachings from other places, from other people. And then we compare notes, and then we want to stick with what we believe. We stick with what we like. We rarely check them. We rarely look at things. And then, we can't have two masters. You can't be following two different people. You just can't. And so if you have two different rabbis that you're following, you're going to follow one sometimes and follow another one at the other time. And you're not following one person. Okay? And what the problem with that is God tells us that He's going to send a prophet like Moses. Okay? And that we're supposed to follow him. Right? He's going to be a prophet like unto Moses. And we're to follow him. Well, what did Moses teach? Torah. What did Moses write down? Torah. What did he want his people to follow? Torah. What did he help them follow? Torah. It was all about Torah. This is how God wants you to live. And that's what Moses taught. And so if a prophet's coming and you're supposed to follow him, it's got to be Torah. Well, what did Yeshua teach? Torah. Was he not the Word made flesh? Torah. Okay, what did he want his disciples to do? Follow Torah. What does he want us to do today? Follow Torah. So we're following Torah, right? We should be. If your leader doesn't teach that you're following Torah and you want to follow Torah, man, you better run, because that's not the right one to look to. That's not the right one to listen to, because it doesn't work. You can't do that. Okay? Even the Apostle Paul says, follow me as I follow Messiah. So Paul was following Messiah. If we're going to follow Paul, we follow Paul as he was following Messiah, and Messiah is following Torah. There you go. Right? It's Torah. But we rebel against that. Oh man, I don't feel like following Torah today. I'm tired. I can take a day off, right? I have this pork sandwich right here. It has some really good cheese on it. I'm just going to eat it, right? It won't hurt. I don't do that. But, I mean, these are some of the things we might think about doing. But it might be how we treat people. It might be how we work. It might be any type of Torah command. I'm just not going to do Shabbat. Rabbi made me mad last week, so I'm not going. Well, you're violating Torah. A good leader is going to make you mad sometimes because he holds you accountable. He teaches you things that are good, but you sometimes don't want to hear it. And so it's good for that to happen. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you, iron sharpens iron, right? He's trying to help you, and sometimes it happens. Okay? So we have these things that are taking place. But remember, when it comes to the Lord, Samuel says it very well. Okay? And in 1 Samuel 15, verses 22 through 23, it says, "And Samuel said, Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, it is better to obey than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king." Okay? Well, it's better to obey than sacrifice. Okay? And so he says it great. Okay? So we have to understand that what are we rebelling against? Well, we rebel against God all the time. We rebelled against another religion to start walking where we're at. As kids, we rebel against our parents in some ways. Okay, some of us more than others. But we rebel. We have this tendency. But not following God's word and not following God's leaders are two separate things. And you can get in trouble for the second. Almost more so. Okay? So, you have... Let's see. There's Bolton. Okay, let's go to Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 7. It says, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. And those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed. And those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you rather have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is a servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Therefore, one must be in subjection, not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. For because of this you also pay taxes. For the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed to them, taxes to whom taxes are owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed. So here we have the Apostle Paul talking about obeying the authorities. Sometimes we don't want to do that. We just don't. Okay? But it's not just talking religious authorities. It's not just talking rabbi. It's talking about your work authorities. Who's your boss? It's talking about families. Guys, your wives. Okay? I mean, think about it. We have to follow authority. And we have many different authorities in our lives. Okay? And so we need to make sure we're following it. Why? Because that's good. And Peter even backs up what Paul says. Okay? So this is not just Paul saying it. In 1 Peter 3:17, Peter says, "For it is better to suffer for doing good, if that should be God's will, than doing evil." He goes again and says, "For what credit is it when you sin and are beaten for it, you endure? But if when you do good and suffer for it, you endure, this is a gracious thing in the sight of God." Now the word good has been minimized by society, has it not? It has. Okay? But it's crazy because Yeshua says in Luke 18:19, it says, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God." God is the Most High. And He's the only one that's good? So what level do we hold the word good to? Okay, oh, that movie was good. Oh, that steak was good. Oh, I like that TV show, it was good. What are we holding the word good to? What does it mean? Good is like there's fair, and then there's good, then you have better, and you have best. Right? And those better and best means it's better than good. Right? But if only God is good, how can it be better? How can you have better and best being better than good? It's a question we have to ask ourselves. Okay? What do we say is good? Well, the Apostle Paul, in chapter 7, verse 12, it says, "So the Torah is holy, and the commandment is holy, and righteous, and good." So he says the Torah is good. Well, if only God is good, so God has to be the Torah. Yeshua is Torah. I mean, you've got to make sense of this all, right? So the Torah is good. So Paul places Torah on the same level as God. It's good. It's good. Okay? How awesome is that? I think it's great. Okay? But we have to remember Yeshua was the Word, because in John chapter 1:14, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen His glory. Glory as the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth." When we live like this, and we understand this, we're going to want people in our lives that follow the same path. Okay? Why? Because you can get encouraged. You can get help. You can get strength. You can have guidance. You can get wisdom. There's so many things that will happen when you walk with people walking with you. Okay? It's hard to walk with people who don't believe as you do. We follow Torah. It's hard to walk with a person that doesn't follow Torah for very long. Okay? You can do the right things, you can do all things, but eventually your paths are going to break. They're going to go different ways. They have to. Okay? Can two people walk together without agreeing on the direction? That's Amos 3:3. You have to agree on the direction. And people walking Torah are walking a different path than those who aren't in Torah. And you have to walk on the same path. Now your paths can cross, you can intermingle for a while, but you can't continuously walk on the same path. It just can't happen. Okay? So Moses brought the people to Torah. He taught Torah and wanted them to follow Torah. Okay? And we have to understand that. But when we come in here, when we go back to Korah, and we're talking about leadership, and we're talking about rebellion, Not everybody is called to be a leader. Matter of fact, very few are actually called to be leaders. Why? Because it's hard to be a leader. You get attacked. You get beaten up. You have Korahs rise up in congregations. Okay, Ray and I were talking about that during the break. You know, he knows of one up in Albuquerque, I think it was, that's having a problem. I had a problem, the same thing in Colorado when I was in charge of a group up there. You have Korahs rise up. They want to take over the group, or they want to break it up. They want to become a boss because they know better. They know more. They have the right way. And these things come up. And it's hard. And when you're in a leadership position, when that happens, what are you supposed to do? Okay? What if Moses would have confronted Korah and saying, knock it off, you're gone? Would it have divided the camp? Yeah, it would have divided the camp. Because some people like Korah. The whole congregation, it turns out, like Korah. Because they all went against Moses. Okay, but that's not what God wanted. Okay? If he would have let it happen, and okay, no problem, would it have split up the group? Yeah, it would have. So a leader in that position is in a very tough situation. If he does something, he's wrong. If he doesn't do something, he's wrong. Either way, he gets hit. And so as a leader, it's a very tough position to be in when Korah rises up within the congregation. Okay? Because then, you know, here's a perfect example. If the leader tells that Korah that rises up, you're out of here. You're gone. Okay? Won't people rise up and say, what are you doing to that man of God? Don't they? That's the same thing the children of Israel did. Let's go back to the bulletin. Okay? Numbers. Chapter 16. Verse 41 says, you have killed the people of the Lord. That's the same thing. Okay? People accuse the leader of basically killing people of the Lord when they kick them out of a congregation. So, what do? It's a very tough position for leaders. But not everybody's supposed to be a leader. Okay? Not everybody's supposed to be a prophet. Okay? Not everybody's supposed to be in charge. I mean, we have in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 11, he says, and he gave the apostles, he gave the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, and teachers. Right here we already see different groups of people. Okay? But you have even more than that, as I mentioned earlier. Everybody has a distinct position. Everybody has a gift. Everybody has something that they can contribute to a congregation. We're supposed to do that. But not all of them are leaders. But they're still people of God. They're still children of God. And they're still just as important to God. They're still just as loved by God. And God sets that up. But there is roles to play, and you have to fall underneath them. And we have a hard time with that. Okay? So there must be leaders over us, not only in synagogue, but at work, at home, when we are doing things on our own. We have to have the leaders over us, and we have to be accountable to somebody. Without that accountability, we fall. We get arrogant, we get stuck on ourselves, we do things our own way, we have problems. And we fall. Okay? If it happens within a congregation, it fails. If it happens with a business, the business fails. You have different things that happen when you're not accountable. So you have to have that accountability. Okay? And so, in other Ephesians, it says, Ephesians 4:1 says, I therefore, a prisoner of the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called. If you have a gift, you better use it. If you have a role to fulfill, you better do it. Okay? Walk worthy of your calling. Whatever that calling might be. Be worthy of that calling. Ephesians 4:24. Put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. Only when you're following your calling can you walk in that true righteousness and holiness. You can't do it any other way. If you have a calling and you're not using it, you're not walking in righteousness. You're just not doing it. Okay? 1 John 3:18. Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and truth. You love by action, not just telling somebody you love them. Your action shows them you love them. Okay? And that is with God. If you love me, keep my commandments. Okay? It's very clear. It's action, not talk. Psalms 119, 142 says, your righteousness is righteous forever, and your Torah is true. Okay? So if you want to walk in deed and truth, you walk in action and Torah. Okay? That's just a biblical understanding. So as we listen to this, and as we've read Korah this week, and we understand about rebellion, let us look at ourselves in rebellion. Are we rebelling anywhere in our lives? Are we rebelling with our relationships, with our work, with our synagogue, with where we're getting our information? Let us look at this, because rebellion is like divination, and it causes problems. Okay? Model those who follow Torah. Find somebody who's following Torah and walk with them. Talk with them. Learn how they do it, why they do it, how it's helped them. You get great things when that happens. You can start walking in power. You start walking in with successes, and good things happen, and you grow closer to God. And so on that note, Torah Man Jr. says, if you are not a better person tomorrow than you are today, what need have you for tomorrow? Shabbat Shalom. So Heavenly Father, we just come to you today just thankful for your Son Yeshua. We ask that the words that we heard today, that we search our hearts, we learn from it, and we apply it to areas of our lives so that we can walk closer to you. Glorify your name and just be with you. Through Yeshua.